was Dwight Eisenhower who once famously said, "I've always found that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable." You know, our lives demand a certain amount of planning, and then circumstances change and our plans must evolve. But we don't stop planning. We pivot. And we've been pivoting a lot here in the city, haven't we? We've been adjusting to change in nearly every aspect of our lives. Now, here at the city, for example, we had an outstanding plan for this year's State of the City address. The details were locked down. We had a date. It was going to take place right here in Adams High School. The theme was determined. Even the invitations were designed and almost sent to the printer and mailed. This auditorium was going to be packed from the front to the back. The program was going to include lights and music and dancing and sound and laughter, like it does every year. And this year I was going to fly from the back of the stage on a zip line suspended over the audience right here to the front. It was going to be incredible. And everything was coming together. We had it all planned out. And then, of course, our plans had to take a new direction. And while the narrative of our 2020 State of the City has certainly changed, our resolve hasn't. Like you, we're pivoting, being flexible and adapting to change. Here at the city, we've been functioning much like a startup, operating in new ways, doing all the successful things that a startup would have to do under circumstances we've never seen. Yes, this State of the City address is different, but just like my addresses of the past, it celebrates our strength and stamina, our commitment and creativity, our resilience and resolve. So ladies and gentlemen, members of our City Council, and to my friends and family, I welcome you to our 2020 slightly scaled down State of the City address. You knew there was going to be fireworks. You know, one thing that I've always believed is that we are better and stronger together. And that strength of a team is best realized under fire. Teamwork, leadership, passion. No one ever having done this before, going through a pandemic, but everyone pulling together for the good of our community. So we're here together with the community leaders representing some of the most important institutions in our community. And all of you have been fantastic. Let's spend a minute talking about something that surprised you or a hopeful story that you've seen throughout the many challenges we've experienced this year.
I think what has been really inspiring in this tragedy has been the outpouring of support from the community in terms of our food distribution. So we've been distributing food on the order of 5,000 to 8,000 meals 3 times a week to the community.
Somebody being creative and using their talent to make a difference was a costume shop in the School of Music, Theater, and Dance stepping forward and saying, we can make masks because we know how to do that and we can train other people to do that. So we've collected thousands from that effort.
We have 3D supplies and we have a 3D printer. And a staff member actually stepped up and said, I can take that printer home, because we weren't allowed to be in the library, and I can manufacture face masks, face shields that we can then send out to our healthcare workers. And then I think you noticed the synergy of saying, doesn't the school have 3D printers? So you were able to help us collaborate and find other ways to expand and grow that kind of initiative.
So many of those also realized those socially isolated seniors needed something to pick up their day. So we received sunshine baskets, chocolates, notes, and we continue to receive them. And it has been so well received by all the seniors that are at home and isolated during this crisis.
That sense of community was evident. And that's why that's one of the reasons that I love this greater community. People understand that when times are tough, they don't look to complain, they look to reach out. And that's been great. To Kevin and to Bryan, with higher education, a lot of questions out there about what that will look like moving forward. Your thoughts?
One of the challenges is creating that up close and personal experience that we value, the connection between humans. In some cases, the best way to do that, given social distancing, et cetera, is going to be virtually. It's going to be through that computer screen that we've all become quite so familiar with. And I think for any given student, it's going to be a mixture of virtual or online that's really designed to maximize learning, along with some in-person experiences that protect the health and safety, which is the primary focus for all of our organizations.
So we already have small class sizes, but it's gonna be very individualized. We're gonna emphasize small groups in student life, and both in and outside of the classroom. A lot of personal connections, and a lot of that will be driven by technology.
And speaking of students, Jim and Bob, you guys tell us your perspective here locally with both Avondale and Rochester Community Schools.
I think the things that are going to change is we're going to need to be patient. But I also like to kind of focus on the things that we remain committed to: the social emotional learning, the relationships, the connections, and really providing that world-class experience for each and every one of our students. And I think we'll still be able to do that even in a very unusual environment.
Piggybacking on Bob's comments, in terms of preparation with teachers to really hone their craft with not just teaching instruction in a classroom, but also remotely. We're now looking at how do we refine that, and so that's something that we're putting plans in place, because you never know when we have to go all remote again or partially remote again, and so we're creating plans to fit all of those different possibilities.
And Elena, now as businesses are opening back up, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be different, like everyone here, has talked about. And for the chamber, relationships are so important. Building those relationships, and I think that's one reason why our community came together so quickly, with your leadership, and we were able to work together so effectively because we did have pre-established relationships that were good prior to this. And, our role going forward is going to be obviously to continue to help our businesses. We have a huge focus right now on our small businesses that were obviously greatly impacted by this.
I want to thank all of you for leading in a really challenging time. And all of you represent pillars in our community, organizations and institutions that make us a great place to live, work, and raise a family. And the fact that we've stayed connected each week to support each other, to listen to each other, and to get through this difficult time together, I think will make all of us stronger on the other side. So thanks. Over the past year, I was fortunate to lead another great group of people, America's mayors. In my role as the 77th President of the United States Conference of Mayors, the highest achievement of my profession. It's an experience that provided me the unique opportunity to represent Rochester Hills in relatively regular interactions with policymakers here in the U.S. and around the world on issues that ranged from immigration to gun violence to the pandemic to the 2020 presidential election, and even hosting 50 of America's mayors right here in the city of Rochester Hills. So let's take a look at my 12-month reign as the president of the Conference of Mayors.
We will and should inspire our children to see a future better than our own. We'll inspire the American electorate to see that mayors are offering real and sustainable solutions. We'll inspire a generation into public service, and I hope we will inspire each other. I share personally that I truly have been so inspired by so many of you in this room.
El Paso is much more than just the headlines and the breaking news alerts on immigration issues. We've also learned from Mayor Margo that El Paso and Juarez share much more than just a common border. We've learned about the economic development, the trade, the jobs, and really the family connections that know no borders between these two communities. As we continue to appeal to Congress and the administration, as we have for many, many years, we will continue to ask that they enact the comprehensive immigration legislation that, in the face of what we see on our border today, is so desperately needed.
But all across this spectrum, we can help each other get started, help each other improve, and help each other create the voice of youth in our community.
This feeling of community, this acceptance of no matter who you are, no matter where you came from, what we care about is what's inside and who you are and what ideas you bring to our conversation. And so every mayor should experience this because there's so many things, so many practical takeaways.
More than 200 other mayors joined you, urging Congress to pass some gun control legislation immediately.
We think as mayors, certainly the United States Conference of Mayors and mayors in general have been leaders in this space for a long time. And I think mayors are tired of seeing these things happen in their cities.
For mayors, This crisis is personal, and no community should have to live in fear of gun violence. And mayors, as we are today, are coming together here in Washington and across the country to tell this city and the leadership here that enough is enough, and we want to work together on a solution.
Really, cities are the incubators of innovation, and Columbus is just one example of some of the transformational work that's taking place in America's cities. And it shouldn't be a surprise that mayors are at the forefront of those discussions.
It's interesting that the conference comes back to Southeast Michigan because this is where it all started. 87 years ago, our forefathers gathered from across the country in the city of Detroit, and it was the birth of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. I'm proud of this organization, proud of the mayors that I stand with, and proud that you won't hear a lot of partisanship here. Beautiful bipartisanship is on the endangered species list in America, and generally now only found in America's city halls. But we must protect it, we must embrace it, and we must pass it on. And we must never lose our high ground. 2 days ago, we unveiled our Mayor's Vision for America, our 2020 call to action. We must keep pushing our federal colleagues to move from aspirational rhetoric to truly achievable results. Time is of the essence. America and the world is watching, Iowa. As John F. Kennedy stated, if not us, who? If not now, when? Well, mayors have been answering that call, and now we look to our leadership in Washington to do the same. America's mayors are constantly getting it done. And that's what this is all about. Despite the negativity that's happening around us, we are moving ahead, addressing the issues that matter most to the American people and getting real work done at home.
Now I find myself as president of the Conference of Mayors during an unprecedented time in America's history.
The coronavirus presents a public health emergency in the United States.
This virus doesn't discriminate. It attacks everyone.
People should be concerned, and leaders across this country should be taking urgent action.
My message today is straightforward and urgent. American cities are still being devastated by this pandemic, and it is imperative that Congress and the administration take swift and aggressive action. Mayors everywhere are leading the local efforts to defeat the virus. It's not a blue city or a red city issue, and there's no part of America or within your home districts that have not been significantly impacted, because the road to recovery runs straight through America's cities.
We have to approach this from a nonpartisan perspective that all of us are Americans and desire to see our communities succeed, our small businesses succeed, and our communities stay healthy is critically important. Cities can't do this without federal partners. And so that's why you see mayors from across the country on this panel pleading with you, all from different political backgrounds, but all really professing a love for their communities and a desire to see them succeed.
This feeling of community, this acceptance of no matter who you are, no matter where you came from, what we care about is what's inside and who you are and what ideas you bring to our conversation.
I feel uniquely prepared because of the relationships I have and the network I have of other mayors to help me get through situations like this. I couldn't be more proud to be a mayor and couldn't be more proud to be president of a conference that recognizes its role in a crisis.
I'm proud of this organization, proud of the mayors that I stand with, and proud that you won't hear a lot of partisanship here. What you'll hear is folks focused on how to get things done. It remains my highest privilege to represent all of you as president of this family. May God bless you, and may God continue to bless the Conference of Mayors. Thank you. As you can see, this was a really, really busy year. And all of that was in addition to being present at the signing of the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Trade Agreement, the USMCA, and the announcement of the American Workforce Policy Advisory Board and the National Council for the American Worker. My involvement with those two events in particular was really key, as trade and workforce development are two of the most important issues that come up in my discussions with local businesses and local business owners. And this past January, as I mentioned, I led a group of America's mayors to the White House for for a briefing with the President's staff and the signing of the Securing America's Nonprofit Organizations Against Terrorism Act of 2019, which authorizes grants to eligible nonprofit organizations for security enhancements, much needed money for houses of worship in our community for strengthening security and training. This was a big win for Rochester Hills and also personally rewarding, as at the completion of the signing, President Trump signed the bill and handed me the pen. Being able to connect with all of these leaders provided direct access that really no other mayor in our state was able to enjoy. And it will come as no surprise to you that I shared stories about Rochester Hills everywhere I went, to anyone who would listen, and of course I still do. After this incredible experience of the past year, I was reminded of the value that I place on home. Rochester Hills remains my favorite place because of the friendliness and genuine kindness of our residents, the beauty of our community, the innovation and excellence of our city employees, the collaboration and positive relationships that we share with leaders in our community, and the stories about our great residents and businesses. It was these businesses in the city that once again revealed their creativity and resilience over the past several months.
And let me tell you a little bit about how the amazing businesses here in Rochester Hills rallied to respond in this crisis. Our business community really stepped up to take on this historic challenge. Companies like Fanuc, Prefix, and Plymouth Technologies all adapted their operations to create PPE for the healthcare heroes that so desperately needed them. Auburn Pharmaceutical, for example, which is building their new headquarters right here in Rochester Hills, donated supplies directly to our fire department. Even in this particularly difficult and challenging situation, they're not only investing, but they're also giving back. And speaking of Fanuc, with their North American headquarters located right here in Rochester Hills, they adapted and pivoted on a dime to begin making the robots that made the masks for 3M almost overnight. An insatiable demand for new technologies to address a national mask shortage and a problem never quite seen before in our nation. Fanuc adapted, Fanuc responded, and Fanuc delivered. Like so many other examples of Rochester Hills businesses stepping up to save lives in this crisis. What those local businesses did here in our city in response to the pandemic and what they've been doing throughout 2020 is truly remarkable and testimony to their creativity and commitment to our community and our region. Now, throughout this pandemic, the economic development team at the City of Rochester Hills has continued to work hard to support our local business community. They partnered with the Michigan Economic Development Corporation and Oakland County's business development team on a number of program deliverables, including connecting those businesses with employees with Michigan Works and the Oakland County Workforce Development Program, connecting businesses with PPE supplies and distributing those reopened PPE kits to small businesses, nonprofits, and faith-based organizations. Truly a valuable resource. They help businesses interpret the executive orders, so many of them issued by our governor. They promoted the free business counseling and webinars offered to small businesses by the One Stop Shop. And they worked with multiple departments, including our city council right here, to adopt a COVID-19 business special permit program to allow businesses flexibility in their operations like they've never experienced, with expanded options for outdoor seating and new temporary sign standards, so critical to get their message out at this difficult time. And most importantly, connecting businesses with grant opportunities and helping with the Oakland County Stabilization Grant Program. The Rochester Hills Economic Development Team took an active role in advocating for dispersing those funds. And I'm pleased to report today that over 90 businesses in Rochester Hills received grant funding through that program for a total of over $422,000. Now, within the past several months, the city has also strengthened its partnership with the Rochester Regional Chamber of Commerce by providing regular updates on governmental news and to listen to the needs of local businesses. Now, needless to say, we continue to be strong advocates for the business community right here in Rochester Hills. Now, as you might expect, COVID-19 has impacted other city operations in a number of ways, and I'm so proud of the way our team has responded. An important and constant partner in all of this has been our esteemed City Council. They've been actively engaged and meeting virtually since the beginning of the pandemic. They haven't missed a beat.
So let's hear from our friends and our partners and a quick message from President Ryan Deal and our Rochester Hills City Council.
So we talk about partnerships and collaborations, and here at the City of Rochester Hills, we couldn't do anything without this next group of people surrounding me on the screen today. We have a great relationship with our Rochester Hills City Council, and here to give you a welcome and to introduce the City Council is the City Council President, Ryan Deal. Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Barnett. It truly is a pleasure working with you and the team at Rochester Hills. Each one of us on the Rochester Hills City Council, Vice President Dr. Susan Boyer, Council members David Blair, Dale Hetrick, Stephanie Morita, Teresa Mangioli, and David Walker, is committed to maintaining the health, safety, and welfare of our residents and to make sure that Rochester Hills continues to be the preeminent place to live, work, and raise your family.
Thank you, City Council. We appreciate the partnership and keep up the great work.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let me quickly offer an update on the city's budget, as it's been a major focus of mine, the team here at the city, and of course, our City Council. Now, my leadership team has spent a significant amount of time evaluating our situation and adjusting to the current climate and making the appropriate changes. Very early on, we evaluated the potential impact of COVID-19 on the city's budget. And as you might know or imagine, just over 32% of the city's budget was immediately at risk. That's a big number. And that 32% represents a combination of state shared revenue, Act 51 gas taxes, and comes from the state of Michigan, and charges for service, and even permits and inspections and park fees. All of it very significant to the city. Now, we all know what's happened to the state's budget, and while we remain concerned about state funding, the cuts to date have not been nearly as dramatic as we estimated early on in our assumptions. And now, obviously, we'll continue to monitor that, but right now, it appears to be pretty good news. Now, during the early days of the pandemic, revenue for fees came into an abrupt halt. Now, one quick example, youth soccer didn't take place this spring, and that one league, that cancellation of that one soccer field rental, resulted in about a $200,000 loss to the city. Revenue loss that cannot be made up. Now, of course, at the same time we were seeing revenue shortfalls, we were also fronting incremental COVID-related expenses, from more PPE to enhancements to our ventilation systems to retrofitting our buildings to provide a safe environment for our employees, residents, and business partners. Lower revenue plus increased expenses, it made for a difficult combination for really any budget. And thus far, we've spent about $350,000 on COVID-related purchases. We've tracked these expenses from day one and have submitted the appropriate paperwork to FEMA, to Oakland County, and to the state of Michigan for reimbursement. And we feel confident that these expenses will be covered and reimbursed accordingly. And while it's been a challenging start to 2020, I commend the entire team for their attention to this budget. As you may or may not know, we were the first community in Michigan to do a 3-year budget, giving us a great opportunity to plan and prepare for times like these. And given our past and current practices, the structural surplus in our budget, our 3-year budget plan, and the 7-year forecast, along with a very rigorous procurement process, we are in perhaps the best position in Michigan to succeed and thrive in this era. And in even better news for our residents, I can say with confidence that we will not be raising taxes in 2021, 2022, or 2023, a streak we've currently kept alive for at least the past 5 years as well. I want to thank the City Council for their patience, their leadership, and finally the trust they've shown in my administration to get things done in a conservative and innovative manner. We have succeeded as a team, and I'm confident that we are well on our way to succeeding during this crisis as well. We'll get through this together. Our greatest privilege as Americans is our ability to vote. And one of the most important functions at the city is to conduct free and fair elections. Now, as you know, 2020 was an important election year, historic really, with primaries in March and August, and of course, the general election in November. And we received unprecedented requests for absentee ballots, and I can never recall a time personally when our community's interest in voting was higher. I want to congratulate the clerk's team for their stellar response, for providing all of the information on how, where, and when to vote, for making our voting process and places safe during the pandemic, and doing all they do to ensure a complete and accurate count. It is a massive job, and their work was truly remarkable. And my personal thanks to those who volunteered to be election inspectors and poll workers. You continue to make democracy work. And finally, to all of the voters, thank you for exercising your right to vote. And thank you for your engagement in the future of our community, our state, and our nation. Your voice matters, and your participation was critically important.
And the election wasn't the only thing in which we asked our residents to participate, and you all did in such great fashion. The census, the 2020 census, is another massive project that the city's been working on for almost the last 18 months. And let me share with you some really exciting late-breaking results. Now, you know the census is important because it really determines the amount of funding we get for the next 10 years. And we haven't always, going back to the year 2000, done exceptionally well. In 2010, we put a great plan together, and in 2020, we wanted to even improve on that plan to get as many of our people counted and as much of the resources back into our community as we possibly could. Well, Rochester Hills, you responded. And I'm pleased to report that when the final numbers have been counted, that the city of Rochester Hills did significantly better even than it did in 2010. But listen to this, we finished 4th in the entire United States of America, the 4th highest reporting community among cities over 75,000 people. We killed it, Rochester Hills. I'm so grateful for your support, for taking the census seriously, and for making sure you and your families' voices were heard. And so now the city of Rochester Hills will reap those benefits for the next decade. Thank you, Rochester Hills, a 4th place national finish.
One of the lessons we've learned throughout this global pandemic is to really focus on what people enjoy, learning about what people value. And one lesson that's jumped to the front is that people love and value the Rochester Hills Park system. Now, we know that the parks have always scored high in every survey, and people love visiting Borden and Spencer and Bloomer, and they have for a number of years. But over the last year, we've added a new park, Innovation Hills. And friends, we are amazed at the energy, excitement, and frankly, the attendance of people visiting Innovation Hills. Across all of our parks through this first part of this year, we've seen about a 40% increase as people have just been excited to get out, social distance, and enjoy all of the beauty that surrounds us. Right here at Innovation Hills, as we've opened up the first section of the park, people are enjoying the water features, the boardwalks, and the glow-in-the-dark pathways. People are enjoying so many beautiful aspects of this park, and we thank all of the partners, both public and private, who've helped make it possible. But friends, we are not stopping here. Just this month, the City Council has voted to move forward on one of the most exciting new things happening from a recreation standpoint anywhere in Southeast Michigan. Right here, just a few steps from the unique and innovative glow-in-the-dark pavement, we're going to create one of the most exciting experiences for kids of all ages and all abilities. The next phase of Innovation Hills is a big one and an important one. It's the playground. And just like the rest of this park, it's not going to be ordinary. No normal slides or usual swing sets here. In fact, we're going to tie into our city's iconic natural characteristics, where kids will be able to climb in and slide out of a tree, inspired by our very own champion, Beb Oak. The water just below the oak will wind and bend exactly like the Clinton River does. And thanks to our schools and local nonprofits, we've created a recreational opportunity right here for children of all abilities. And while we are so excited about all of the amazing things happening right here in Innovation Hills, this isn't the only place in our city where you're going to see transformational change. Take a look at where we head next, the Auburn Road corridor, where new shopping, dining, and beautification has taken place, and we're especially excited about the city's first splash pad. Well, here we are in one of the most dynamic areas in the entire city of Rochester Hills. And if you haven't been down to the Auburn Road corridor recently, you need to make a plan to come down here and visit. Now, this is really a great example of the city getting in touch with the local businesses, the local residents, and putting into play a plan to re-energize and reinvent this beautiful part of our town. You know, not very long ago, this stretch of road behind me looked considerably different than it does today. It was owned by the state of Michigan. It was technically the old M59 highway, and it was a 40 or 45 mile per hour speed limit. It was cement from one side of the road to the other. There was no trees, no place for bikes, no place to walk. And the city and the city council and administration decided it was time to finally invest in the Brooklands area of our community. So we began meeting with folks, residents, meetings at the DPS facility to find out what people wanted to see in this part of their town. It's one of our most historic and oldest neighborhoods, so there's a lot of people with deep roots in this part of our community. And they wanted to see it protected, but they wanted to see it more a place for families and for new businesses, and a chance to even add some recreation and improve the safety of this entire stretch of road. So we went to work. And over the last 18 months, we've recreated the old Auburn Road to look like what you see behind me. It's a divided street with parallel parking on street. We've got the alleys in back with parking in back. The restaurants are reinvesting. There's new businesses that are planning to come to town. We're building the city's first splash pad, which should be open sometime this fall, and a park area for residents to enjoy. You don't have to spend more than a minute or two down here to see a biker or a dog walker or people enjoying this new outdoor space in ways that just weren't available before. We've had a real focus on the environment with landscaping and rain gardens to make sure that everything we're doing is sustainable. And all of it is directed for one thing, to improve the quality of life for the residents and businesses of this part of our city. So how are we doing? Well, a study showed just recently from our assessing department that property values adjacent to this investment have increased at over 8% over the last year. Now that's a 40% higher rate than other areas of the city in general. So we're already seeing this investment start to pay off for the residents and businesses located most closely to it. So we invite you down. We invite you to come check out the new areas down here, the bike paths, the outdoor eating areas, and the benches, just to see what this old area of town has now become. We're grateful for the City Council's support and look forward to the continuation of the changes here on the Auburn Road Corridor.
Well, as we talk about all the different challenges and changes that took place in 2020 because of this pandemic, one of the groups that was most impacted, we're going to talk to someone right now. The 2020 graduating classes of both Avondale and Rochester Community Schools faced unique challenges like no class before them ever has. And today I'm excited to be joined by one of those Avondale graduates to talk a little bit about that experience.
Hello, I'm Chitra Zhou, and I'm a 2020 graduate of Avondale High School.
Tell us a little bit about what it was like when you found out that school was canceled forever for you.
Well, hello. Yeah, I guess, of course, like none of us could have really anticipated that. I actually remember the last day of high school for me was a spirit day, and it was our dress up as an old person day. So that was my last outfit to high school. So again, of course, came as a shock to everyone. And I guess we've just tried to be flexible through this whole thing and make the most out of it. But it's definitely been, again, as everybody says, unprecedented and very trying times.
And you made a decision. You took your talents and you decided to go to?
Well, I decided to go to Harvard College. And I moved in. I'm currently in my dorm right now. And I'm very grateful to be on campus. Of course, it's a different college experience, but I think that we're all just doing our best to make the most of the situation.
Harvard, I've heard of it. I think it's the Oakland University of the East, I think is what we call it here.
Absolutely, yes.
Congratulations to you. What an amazing accomplishment. If I were to ask you one word that you would use to describe this whole situation of graduating during a pandemic, what would you say?
I'd probably say, very, very trying, but also, I would say it's been a really creative time. I think that people have just found new ways to connect with people. And I know my friends and I have tried different methods of keeping connected, having virtual family game nights. And I think that this entire experience has just really brought out how creative we can be to maintain human interaction, even in a socially distanced world.
That's a great answer. And maybe you've talked about this a little bit, but in terms of the best thing, and we often hear people say the worst thing, it's been challenging because we haven't been able to do this. We haven't had sports the way we wanted to have sports. We haven't been able to gather for graduation. But there's probably some unique, maybe some silver linings. What was maybe an unexpected positive that came from graduating from Avondale in this environment?
I think it's really pushed us to reach out to our friends more often, and I've stayed connected with many more of my high school friends than I might have thought before, even while we're all in different places for college. I think that having that distance of COVID has really made us cherish our relationships even more and really see the value in them. And I think people have put in just more effort in staying connected and just checking in on people. So that's, I guess, one silver lining of COVID.
And what would you tell the current seniors at Avondale? What would be the short sentence or encouragement that you would share with them having gone through this kind of unique situation?
I understand they're still in the situation now, but I've stayed connected with a lot of people on Instagram, and I've seen they're really trying their best to make the most out of homecoming. So I just say that they're doing a great job in trying to keep this school spirit and just trying their best through these times. So I just say that they're doing a really wonderful job, and they can make it to the end of the school year as well.
Well, thank you. I mean, listen, optimism, hope, staying connected, making the best of it. You clearly have not just survived in this environment, but you have chosen to thrive in it. We are proud of you. Thank you for representing us over there in Cambridge. Our best to you as you continue your studies, and thank you for being a fantastic ambassador for the city of Rochester Hills. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Well, this has certainly been a different kind of year, and as you can see, a very different kind of state of the city. But hopefully you can see that we have still so much to be proud of in the city of Rochester Hills. No matter what happens, we respond, not with a complaint, but with a solution. Not with a what are we going to do, but we pivot to a new way of thinking and moving ahead with a list that reads, here's what we've already done. In the midst of a 100-year pandemic, an economic downturn that we haven't seen in 90 years, and more social unrest than we've seen since the 1960s, we still have an incredible story to tell. Friends, the state of our city is incredibly strong and now tested. And we have so many people to thank for their efforts. I'll start first by, of course, thanking my leadership team of directors and my staff in the mayor's office, who without their help, we would not have experienced anywhere close to this level of success. And frankly, to the entire city team for their dedication and how each employee has adjusted to the change. Your living rooms were transformed into home offices. You innovated by conducting building inspections through Google Meet. You created ways for our residents to still connect with us and learn from home, whether it was tours of our museum or pop-up wildlife programs or fire safety content that we would put on Facebook Live. You unselfishly made thousands of calls each week to seniors in our community just to check on them, to see how they're doing, and to let them know that we care. I want to thank the family members of our team as well. You provided a support system that lifted up our employees and enabled them to do the best they possibly could. A special thank you to our public safety officers on the front lines, our firefighters and police officers. Your performance was spectacular in the teeth of this challenge. I want to thank our Rochester Hills businesses who have stood up to support a vital workforce and our community under extremely challenging and uncertain conditions. And I want to thank the residents for supporting those local businesses along the way. Thanks, of course, to our City Council for their unwavering support. Our employees know that you, City Council, always have their backs. And a big thank you to our faith organizations, our nonprofit community, our hospitals, our healthcare workers, and other frontline team members for everything they did and continue to do to elevate our residents during a remarkable time of need. Rochester Hills, our future is bright. I'm reminded of the strength, resilience, and resolve of our city's unofficial mascot, our stately Bebo, known to be the largest in the country. For 275 years, she has stood proudly through pandemics, world wars, economic collapses, even the birth of a long-shot nation called America. She's seen a lot, but she stands as a symbol of hope that this too shall pass. Yes, this year has been different and certainly challenging, but so is life. And there's no place or people I'd rather experience and do life with than my friends and neighbors here in Rochester Hills. So thank you. Thank you for the privilege to serve as your mayor and for the opportunity to continue to make Rochester Hills the preeminent place to live, to work, and to raise your family. May God bless you, your families, our community, and may God continue to bless the United States